Welcome to Flesh and Pod, a Flesh and Blood podcast, breaking down weekly news and notes from the tournament scene, community drama, game strategy, and more. And now, here are your hosts, Darick and Logan.
Hello, and welcome to episode 80 of Flesh and Pod. My name is Logan. I am your host. With me, as always, is the intrepid master of all things sadness, Darick Oswald. Charmer, what did you get up to, if anything, in Flesh and Blood this week?
I got up to not nearly as much as I would have liked, because my life has been a little bit madness as of late, as you know. But this is the time of year where there's a lot of open houses and it's the end of the school year and I have kids and whatever. So I unfortunately could not attend my armory. The night that we had the armory, it was middle school orientation for my oldest because he is moving on to middle school. And yeah, it was bittersweet, mixed emotions. He's going to the same middle school that I went to. So when we were touring the building, I was like, oh yeah, I broke my ankle against that wall, and here's where I used to play Magic on my lunch breaks. And
yeah, have you ever walked into those and like felt like you're a giant?
A little bit. The middle school was big enough that I don't feel as much like a giant, but when I go back to my old elementary school that I attended, because I went to a couple of them, but the one that I attended here at Holt, it is tiny. I feel like an absolute monster when I'm walking around that one. So my Flesh and Blood time was impacted by all of the family stuff, and I'm excited because next week things should return to normal and I can hit up the armory and win some cool stuff again.
Yeah, I totally understand that. Like, if I didn't run one of the armories, I would probably miss them a lot more than I do now. But I only played the Thursday armory that I normally play this week. Just a nice little CC armory. Played Briar, lost to Ranger because I played Briar, and then won the other 3 rounds because I played Briar. So, and I played Briar because I can, and I don't have to put any effort because it's already built. But so that was fun, and got to do some stupid shit, which is always a good time. I'm a big fan of stupid shit when I get to do it. Then for the first time, and I shit you not, this is real numbers. For the first time since 2013, I had a weekend where I had no plans and my wife was out of town without me. It had been 10 years. So I decided that I was going to do my normal Frosthaven on Friday, and then I was going to cook on Saturday, which I did. I made a Chianti braised short rib and a lemon Reggiano risotto. Now, one thing here. Fuck risotto. I cannot fucking believe how tedious it is to make that bullshit Italian rice. Like, it is, you have to sit there with a pot of first off, just getting to the point that you can actually put liquid into the risotto itself that isn't just reduced wine is maddening. And then you have to sit there and you have 8 cups of liquid, and you have to add in half a cup at a time and wait for it and stir while you wait for it to absorb, and then add in another half cup. And you have to do this continually, or else your risotto turns into pudding. So it's like fucking 40 minutes of just bullshit stirring. And nope, I'm done. I am done. I'm never doing that bullshit again. It was delicious, but fuck this. Never again. So yeah, I did that, then played some board games, and then I went and golfed a bit today. Yeah, so I got to kind of just do anything I wanted. And I chose to do that. So it was a great weekend for me, honestly. It was also, so we had an issue with last week where we had a thing that was, we lovingly referred to as Schrodinger's LL, because we did not know if Briar got over the hump when we recorded. We could surmise that it was either 1,000 points on the nose or it was 998. It was 998. So Briar lives to menace society as of right now. Again, what are your thoughts on this? How do you feel about Rosetta Thorn potentially getting a trip through the rune blades that we're going to get in Dusk Till Dawn?
I am fine with it. I think that Rosetta Thorn has a reputation that is both well earned but also a bit overhyped at the same time. It is absolutely annoying, and when it pops off and catches you for like 4 damage 3 times in a row, it feels awful. But that also is kind of like negating all of the other kind of disgusting things that rune blades can already do pretty consistently on their own. And I think that we're going to find that even when Briar does go away and we lose Rosetta Thorn, there's still going to be some very effective runeblade options. And I think it will take that happening for folks to go, all right, well, maybe Thorn wasn't the problem.
No, well, yeah, sure. But maybe it's just a runeblade thing.
Yeah, I think that, if I'm being entirely honest as well, just knowing what we know about our new runeblade, I don't think that she's really going to like be built around Thorn anyway. That's not to say that any runeblade doesn't benefit from Thorn, because it's absolutely something that works incredibly well with the play style of the runeblade class. But I just have this feeling that it's not going to be as important for her because of, again, what we know so far. I think that there's still a lot of missing pieces with the new heroes, but for now, just on paper, what we know, I don't think it's going to be as huge of a deal for the new hero.
Yeah, I'm not. I think we'll have a healthy discussion about that here shortly. But we have one more event to get her out of here before Dusk Till Dawn. Battle Hard in Los Angeles is the last shot because the Calling Singapore happened and Nick Butcher won on Oldhim, which is not Briar.
I mean, it is an Earth hero. They were halfway there. They were
halfway there, but it was one that's already a legend.
Yeah. Unfortunately, Briar still living on a prayer.
Oh, yeah. It's more than halfway there, too.
Yeah.
But so top 8 on this event was Adash, 3 Oldhims, and then one Lexi, 1 Dromai, 1 Azuri, and 1 Icelander. So very diverse, honestly, in the top 8 here with, your hero spread, but 3x Oldhims. Like it was just getting, I think it's a lot of people is getting those last licks in before the beginning of July when Oldhim waves goodbye and we kind of start anew. So it's not surprising to me to see Oldhim go in and do some more work, get some more points. But congrats to Nick Butcher and the rest of the top 8 for a hell of an event. It looked like it was very cool. Like it looked like it was something that I would have wanted to be at if I could have got to Singapore.
Yeah.
But there was also a Blitz Battle Harden, which was won by Gordon Coe on Chain. So that was a different one. We haven't seen Chain show up for a Blitz win in a while, but there were 2 chains in this top 8. 2 chains, sir.
Yeah.
It's with a Kasai and Azalea, 2 Kanos, and 2 Reinars.
So there's a couple of things that actually surprised me about this. First, the Azalea in Blitz. Like, I know that obviously Rangers have been very prevalent in Classic Constructed, right? Very prominent there, but not as much of an impact in Blitz, surprisingly. So the fact that the Azalea snuck in, I felt was again just like really interesting.
Odd. Yeah.
The other thing is, I think that this might be the first time that I have found out that 2 chains even played Flesh and Blood, but I'm
2
happy
chains.
to hear. happy to hear that he made the top 8, known rapper 2 Chainz, and
Yeah, I'm
congratulations.
super happy for him, honestly. The actual finals was Kasai versus Chain. That is normally a that is a very intriguing matchup from both sides. That requires blood debt management and a little bit of luck, with from the Kasai side, because you can't give them forever. And if they're managing their blood debt and their soul shackles, like eventually they're going to punch through you for enough to get you gone, and you're going to have to block with something you don't want to. There's also a lot of discussion in that matchup if you even try to play a piece of Arcane Barrier or if you just try to roll hard.
I think you just roll hard because they're going to rope dope you anyway.
Yep, that's usually my go-to on that one. So, I mean, the Kasai played through a Rhinar, a Kano to get to the finals. The Chain played through a Mirror and a Rhinar to get to the finals. So, both had a very different path there. The poor Azalea had to go through a Rhinar, which, that's ouch. Right in the ledger, you. Okay. 9.
Yep.
Right. Whatever, dude. And then the Kanos had a mirror in the quarters, and then Kasai versus Kano turns into a Kano kind of has to do the thing super early in order to get through. And if they don't, it's a Kasai kind of gets to turn the corner and win that one most of the time. So that's interesting, though. I would have loved to watch the Kasai Chain match, because that's usually very intriguing to watch. That's just good old fashioned flesh and blood is what that is. Just as Garfield intended. But
just as Garfield intended.
Yep, as Garfield intended.
Fun fact about Garfield. Loves lasagna, hates Mondays.
Hates Mondays. I mean, fuck Mondays. We also, out of the calling in Singapore, got some Dusk Till Dawn spoilers, but we did get one before that from the intrepid Oldham Stan, Michael Feng. We got the Oldham specialization out of Dusk Till Dawn. That's Northern Winds. It is a blue ice action, correct?
Yeah.
And it is does not block for 3. So kind of already below rate.
Because it's ice.
Yeah, I know. It's just below rate, though. It's not Jordan Kennedy.
Not for ice. I think there's only 2 ice cards that block for 3, right?
Channel Lake Frigid,
and Grasp, and that's it. Everything else is 2. So actually, it's average for an ice card, okay?
But not above rate.
But it's cold, okay? Give them a break.
There's shrinkage? Is that what you're trying to say?
I mean, it's ice.
There's significant shrinkage. Okay. So when you play this, and this has some text, and this actually, the text got the internet in uproar because it's the internet. What the fuck else is it going to do? But the text on this bad boy is, it's a 0 cost. Freeze up to 1 equipment, item, and or ally each hero controls. Now, this was the controversy, because it doesn't say until end of turn.
Right.
And that just started fucking massacring people's brains. But it came out as a clarification that no, freeze is a keyword, means until end of turn.
Now, so in defense of the people, because I was one of them, in defense of the people that thought this might be something, a bit more potent, a bit more powerful than it ended up being, every other time so far to date in the game that freeze has been mentioned, it has specifically said until end of turn, and this one did not.
Right.
There's also a card called Thaw that does allow you to unfreeze something, and that card is basically worthless 90% of the time. So I felt like there was enough precedent and design space where that could be something they were going to explore further. Because I saw a lot of people posting like the normal Magic meme about like, it doesn't say till end of turn.
Forgot to say till end of turn.
We're used to this by now, blah, blah, blah. But traditionally, LSS is pretty explicit And like I said, up until this card, every other instance had always very specifically said until end of turn. There's a lot of text on this card, so I know why they left it off, but I do feel like there was enough here to justify the confusion.
Sure. The unity effect on this one is weird to me, because it's when this defends together with a card from hand, create a Spellbane Aegis token under any number of heroes' control, which... Huh? What? Why Spellbane Aegis? Like, why is that an Oldham thing?
Because
the shield?
Because it's a shield. Because it's a defensive thing. It's not going to be a card that can create like a spectral shield or anything like that. So the next best defensive option is the Spellbane Aegis. But also, I think that is just fine as a Shiana card.
It's a Shiana card.
And so I think
why
the
it's a Shiana card?
Because it's not an Oldham card.
Right. But you know why specifically this is great for Shiana?
Blue pitch.
Because we can finally fuse Endless Winter.
Oh, yeah, that too. You can use Endless Winter. That's another fantastic use of it as well.
Yeah, we finally get to fuse Endless Winter.
No, if I'm being entirely honest, I think that it fits into the defensive theme, and so that's the consideration. But I also can't help but notice with the Unity mechanic that this is very much a set that I think is going to, we're going to look back at this and we're going to say like, okay, this set is when you turned the corner for Flesh and Blood and they started paying more attention to multiplayer and more attention to the design cycles for whatever our PvE is. Because all of these Unity things say under any number of heroes control.
Mm-hmm. So they're built for it.
Yep. Yeah. So when you are, playing politics at the table, which is my favorite thing to do during multiplayer, being able to be like, hey, I'm going to block with this. If you don't attack me next turn, I'll, give you the benefit too, or whatever. The treatises and things like that you can do with the Unity mechanic is awesome. And then obviously being able to help out all of your friends in any sort of PvE mode is a big deal. So,
yep, that's exactly what this smells of, is preparation for PvE, which I think is a good thing. Honestly, it's I know that PvE is not this year, which kind of sucks, but I do like that they are gearing things for Ultimate Pit Fight and PvE. I think that's very cool. The other thing about this card I do want to point out is this is another instance of Federico Musetti going hard as fuck on the art, because this art goes hard. It is gorgeous. But
it's a shame that we won't get to see it.
Yeah. Well, I mean, we'll get to see it, just
when you fuse an Endless Winter on Shiana, and that's
right,
it.
when we just fuse Endless Winter. So right now, I think that this one is actually hanging out in the bottom tier for the cycle of cards. I don't think it's particularly great, except for when multiplayer comes around and in Shiana. We also got two of the hero reveals. We're going to start with Prism Advent of Thrones. This is a light illusionist hero, but this is young and has a title, so this will not be an adult version. The adult version will probably have some form or fashion of difference. Just because anytime a young hero's had a title, they had not had an adult version of that hero.
Well, we've not had... So the only reason that I hesitate to say that is the case here is we've not had to date any young heroes where like the adult one was Living Legend the way we have with Prism. So like right now we have a young Prism that's just Prism, right?
Yeah, and legal.
And legal. And then we have the Living Legend adult one. Now, they could have just printed only an adult one, but if they're trying to plan long term and they wanted a one to represent a young and an adult for like a new set or a new cycle, you can't just call the young one Prism. again, right? Like
Sure.
it has to have a different name. So we're
Okay.
in we're in new territory is all I'm trying to say. It's
Sure,
very
sure.
possible it could be different, but like I'm also leaving myself open to the possibility that it could be the same because we haven't ran into this situation with any other hero in the game so far.
That's true. Okay. I could see that. So Prism Advent of Thrones' ability is whenever a card, again, 16 health for intellect. Whenever a card with Herald in its name is put into Prism's soul during an action phase, you may search your deck for a figment, put it into the arena, then shuffle. And as a once per turn instant, you can pay 2 resources to banish a card from Prism's soul and awaken target figment you control. So first things first, figments. What are they? In my mind, they are probably the front side of these angels that we saw, like Bologna. And you have to then do the thing to awaken the figment. That's my guess. Do you have any guesses on this?
I think that is going to be the most likely scenario. Because specifically it's got awaken in that bold text, right? So whatever card you are fetching, whatever figment you're fetching and then like putting into play, it's going to need something to awaken it. Now it's possible that every card might have its own way to awaken it on it, right? So just imagine imagine you play an aura and then the aura has text on it that says like, if these conditions are met or if you pay this, then awaken it, and then you flip it over. Conversely, you have also got the hero here where you could use the hero ability to awaken it as well. Or maybe that's the only way to awaken it. And it's going to be entirely based on the soul thing. If that's the case, but even without that, I think it's going to be something close to that, right? It's feeling very, very powerful to me. And the reason that I say this is because when I compare this to somebody like Dromai, for example, Dromai has the benefit of easily giving a bunch of the dragons go again. So far, again, if we're going under the assumption that Bologna is one of the figments, that does not have go again. Obviously, the new Luminaris means we have to pay a tax to give the heralds go again. So go again is going to be a premium, I think, for New Prism. However, outside of the go again part, when you compare this Prism to like a Dromai, being able to tutor for a figment every time you put a herald into your soul feels nutty.
It does.
Because if you've got powerful ones, obviously you can go fetch them whenever you want. But what I think about is all of the dragons that exist for Dromai, some of them have a very toolboxy feel, right? So obviously something like Thamai is really good in some matchups and then just awful in others. And so sometimes, depending on the meta, it doesn't even make the cut. But if you had the option to just include it in your deck list and always tutor for it when you did need it, because that's a hero ability, like that feels insane.
Yeah, no, it does. And so figments makes me think of like figments of your imagination, right? That's kind of where my brain goes. And then there's the figments become angels, which are, you bring them in through reflection and such. So if you're ever wondering if Prism is a cop, she's invested in thoughts and prayers. So,
well, not only that, but this particular Prism is an undercover cop, because it's like, oh, you're just imagining things. No, actually, it's real, and you're busted.
And you're busted. Oh, beautiful. Yeah, fucking illusionists are all cops. It's just a theme at this point. Pretty sure that they're just planning it that way and just giving us all everything we need to.
I mean, every time you're playing an illusionist, you're like, you have to tell me if you're a cop, and they're like, oh, okay.
Otherwise, it's entrapment.
I'm totally not a cop, and they're like, actually,
totally a cop.
I'm just an illusionist.
Yeah,
and
which is also a cop.
Yeah,
just saying. We also got Vincett's text, so this is some interesting shit. This will be the same young and old. We know that. So it's your standard 4 intellect, 20 health young, 20 health or 40 health adult, I'm sure. The text on this one is at the start of your turn, banish a card from your hand. If you do, create a rune chant token. Now, important safety tip here, you cannot elect not to. So you do have to banish a card if you can. Is what it is. Second ability. Whenever you play a shadow non-attack action card, you may pay 1 life. If you do, the next rune chant effect that would deal damage this turn can't be prevented. Okay. So step 1. Well, we know how to get Phantom Banshee into the banish zone now.
Yep.
We just do it.
You just do it.
Yep, fantastic. This also feels really good for your Tome of Torment stocks if you got those. Because you can kind of start, setting a little bit up with, creepers turns or whatever, like however you need to do things to get some extra action points to start playing Tome of Torments out of your banish zone to draw cards to keep going. So that's kind of nifty and neat. And it's whenever you play a shadow non-attack, you can pay the 1. So you can keep paying 1 to keep making rune chants not able to be prevented. So it's not the first time, but you can't pay for future rune chants beyond the first one. So you'd have to play a shadow non-attack, attack to get the rune chant to go off, can't be prevented, then play another shadow non-attack, pay the 1, yada yada yada, right?
Yeah.
That's the only way to get that to really work. So it could be not very easy to string those together, but it also makes it so that it's a guaranteed source of damage, which is a big deal. Mainly because LOL Prism. We're back to that again, where nice ward you got there. Those are some really cute spectral shields. I'm just gonna play what do we got here? A shadow puppetry and pay 1, and then attack with anything, and blow up your entire board of angels and spectral shields. And you take 1.
Yeah. So there's actually quite a bit of things that I have been thinking about since we finally got the text on Vinset, right?
Yeah.
The first thing is I want the rules clarification for the second half of Vinset's text, because the rune chant effect that would deal damage can't be prevented. Is that the entire effect? Let's just say you have 5 rune chants, right? Is it just the first of the 5, or is it all 5?
Well, they all are treated as separate instances of damage.
Right. So I suspect it's just one of them, which is relevant, but it's also still going to blow through all of the wards and spectral shields, even on the first one. It only takes 1 to screw over Prism that way. But that's relevant, and I kind of like that it might just be 1, like I suspect it to be, just because then that also gave them a way to get around the OTK versions of Runeblade. They want you to kind of play it with this mid-range feel. But the other thing that really stands out to me is there's a lot of very cool Runeblade cards that do things based on if arcane damage has been done already.
Yep.
And this ensures, even if they have arcane barrier, this ensures that you're going to get that in. Now, granted, you're paying health for that, but meet and greet, Volition is another one.
Volition,
because I love getting people to discard cards.
Yeah, consuming Volition's a motherfucker at that point.
Yeah, there's a lot of really neat effects that trigger, and this gives you the ability to make use of those cards much more efficiently. The other thing that jumps out at me, because you're right, you have to banish the card. I think that because of the required banish, that explains why Flail didn't have a pitch cost, because they wanted to set it up so that even if your hand is the one card you're going to banish and it's a blood debt, let's say it's Shadow Verser or whatever, you can still also Flail to deal the rune chant damage that you just set up, right? Because you banished the one card left in your hand, you make the rune chant, but now if it's late in the game and you still need to pressure, you have a no pitch way to activate your rune chants. So I just like a lot of what we're seeing here.
Yeah. And I also want to point out that this, I believe, is templated the same as Starvo. So there is no priority window at the start of your turn, so you can't just like Art of War to draw up to have something else to banish prior to the ability going off. So
correct. You would have to do it at the end of your opponent's turn.
Yep.
Because that one's an instant, but for other effects and stuff, yeah.
Yeah, so you wouldn't have the plus of the pump effect or anything else going through. So that is important safety tip for people trying to plan around Vincent. I do like this card. I think that this is I think it's a good direction. It feels balanced. It does feel breakable, but it doesn't feel as unga bunga as other rune blades have felt over time. The one thing I do wonder though, because you're right when it says the next rune chant effect, is that are we going to get a way to make bigger rune chants like that deal more damage?
Yeah. It's a fair question, because obviously, RuneChant has done its thing for a long time, but there are cards that they've kind of toyed with to double your RuneChant damage, though it's not considered a RuneChant effect at that point.
Right.
What is it? Looming Doom is the one I think I'm thinking of, where you destroy all your rune chants and then it becomes tokens on the Looming Doom.
Yep.
Every time you remove one, it deals 2 instead of 1. So you're doubling your rune chant damage, but it's at the cost of doing it over time.
It's not a rune chant at that point.
It's not a rune chant effect, right?
Yeah.
But I still feel like there's room for things to like buff your rune chants. Think like a la Kano.
Yeah, what if the offhand for Vincent is similar to a Crucible of Aetherweave, but for rune chants? That would be a lot. But
I mean, that would be kind of cool.
But it's a lot though. Like, we're back to the criticism of do they know how to balance this yet? So, again, looking at the art, Federico Mozzetti goes hard. Like, that's all there is to it. It is. I mean, not to say Livia Prima's Prism isn't gorgeous. It is gorgeous. But man, give me the Hellraiser aesthetic all day long. Just absolutely love it. In other news, I guess we can, since we're going around the world, but not two worlds, we got our Premiere Play, otherwise known as PP announcement this week, where we have 2 more callings on the docket for the year. We have Taipei, October 13th through 15th, and in the US, Dallas-Fort Worth, October 20th through 22nd. I will probably try to make that one if I can. It's not too hard to get to Dallas from here. It's just get on 35, set the cruise control, and go to sleep while the car drives itself. And that's how that works, right?
Oh, yeah.
Yeah, okay. Just making sure.
That's how it works for me. I fall asleep. I just wake up there.
Yeah, like that's how, and weirdly enough, I've actually had that happen before. I fell asleep in Des Moines and woke up in my hometown, which is 144 miles away. I stopped drinking as hard after that, weirdly enough. Then we also have 7 battle hardens that were added to the docket. 2 in the US, the rest in sort of a nice smorgasbord of places. So we have Florence, September 16th and 17th. So, it's nice little Italy there. Tokyo and Toulouse in France, October 6th through 8th. Milwaukee, October 7th through 8th. Warsaw and Kuala Lumpur, if you ever wanted to go to Malaysia for a battle harden, October 27th through 29th. And then St. Louis, October 28th through 29th. So a lot of battle hardens here too. I might try to make that Milwaukee one. I like Halloween too much to go to St. Louis.
Yeah.
I'd rather have fun here. But it's also, I don't like St. Louis much. But so that's a lot of announcement that didn't include worlds. And I'm going to go on a little bit of a tangent here, but it's June. I think with this announcement, we can reasonably assume that Worlds will be in November, but not having a location for international travel 5 months out is going to start making those prices untenable for a lot of people. It's been a while. Well, I mean, 6 months since it really felt like we had a bit of a ball drop on the LSS side, right? And I 100% understand and applaud even the desire to make this version of Worlds absolutely crush the previous version, but that's also a bar low enough that you can trip on it. So any detail right now would probably be very welcome to basically everyone. That's I guess thanks for probably at this point in time you're driving the price of PTIs down if people want to buy them. But not knowing the dates and location of Worlds right now, I think is very harmful to the player base. What do you feel about that?
I will never be upset about knowing locations sooner. So you'll get no argument from me there. I can't help but wonder if like the only reason it's left off is just because certain things aren't finalized. And the reason I say
about
that
guarantee that's true.
And I was gonna say the only reason I say that is that you look at this and there's a ton of stuff happening in October, and then like that's the cutoff. And like you said, it's I think a reasonable assumption Worlds is happening in November, and I think that they probably wanted to announce that as like the capstone with this announcement, and then there's probably and I want to be very clear here. I don't have any sort of inside information. I'm not sharing anything, but I just feel like you look at this and they probably wanted to do the announcement alongside this. Something is holding it up, and that's the only reason that they haven't.
Yeah, I think that is very, very much the case. But even if you had like, I know nothing is guaranteed right now. I know nothing is set in stone. But I also know that you could say, okay, we're doing Worlds here. We just don't know the venue for sure yet, but we are going to put it here regardless. If they could say that. I mean, not saying they can. I don't know. I'm not privy to any of these discussions. That would be nice, you know. Looking at this, like you have Italy, France, and Poland all represented in the Battle Hardens in October. So I would say any one of those countries, because we know that Worlds is in Europe at least, is a reasonable assumption, as well as probably England and Germany for hosting the event. It's just, I would like to know, like booking travel is going to start getting, again, it's already not cheap. It's international travel. But when you start getting into those, you know, $1,500 a plane ticket flying, you know, round trip flying from in the most uncomfortable seat you can find from an airport that's not local to you, people are going to just start pausing and going, no, that's not it. And also people have, you know, they have their travel budgets, and if they don't know where Worlds is and they're holding on to that travel budget, be it PTO or, you know, from work or even a, you know, monetary budget, they might be looking at that and going, well, if I'm going to do something else, I need to start planning it now. So it's starting to wear, I think it's starting to wear on people. I'm seeing Twitter get a little more restless again. It's been a while since Twitter was restless like this, which is a credit to LSS and the PP team, as it were, for making things a little bit more transparent with these larger announcements, like knowing that where the callings are in October, is great. That's 4 months away. That's awesome. Not knowing where Worlds is because it's not country local necessarily for us. We know it's not country local for the US right now. Not quite as great. So we're teetering a little bit here. I hope we get that soon, because I think that you're starting to get to that point again where the player base is going to start saying, well, I don't want to deal with this.
I mean, for some of us, we're already there because we're poor. So to me, a trip to Worlds right now might as well be opening a, hand-drawn, serialized 1 through 10 Prism card, because it's just not real.
Well, yeah. So that's the thing, is we're 100% going to sit down at whatever the next time we get together happens, and we're gonna flip and rip Dusk Till Dawn boxes, and also flip and rip Lord of the Ring, Middle Earth Magic box collectors boxes, hoping we tear the One Ring in half. So,
don't give Keith ideas, please.
I think that would be genuinely fun. I mean, like, sounds like a good time to me. But yeah, I think flip and rip Dusk Till Dawn boxes does sound kind of sweet, though, just because there is some added juice there. But that's a thing for another day, where I know a lot of people are cringing at the thought of flip and rip, but just the thrill of it. It's an adrenaline rush. It's the same as why would you jump out of an airplane, right? I wouldn't. Sure. But the only good things that can happen is you don't die. The rest of the things that can happen equals you die. So why do it in the first place? Well, it's the rush, baby. That's it. We're just trying to get the rush. Same thing with flip and rip. Nothing good can happen. You could have had the same thing just by opening the packs. But it's the juice. It's the thrill. That's why it's great. That's all I'm saying, is maybe we flip and rip Dusk Till Dawn and Lord of the Rings Magic product, just to see if we can feel something. The again, just for our realm, the realm corner, as we basically have right now, Salt Lake City Brawl is coming up August 4th through 6th. We have Super Armory Friday night at Kayfabe Cards, followed by a Classic Constructed 5K on Saturday, and then Blitz Battle Hardened on Sunday. As per always, there will be a speakeasy party on Saturday night. Details are still TBD, last I knew. I think that Keith is actually building a bowling alley in Salt Lake City, a pop-up bowling alley.
This is why I wasn't allowed to go to Salt Lake City.
Oh, that would make a ton of sense, actually. I wasn't even thinking about that, but you're correct. That would be a good reason why you shouldn't be allowed to go to Salt Lake City. There is no pop-up bowling alley to my knowledge, but I also might have just given somebody an idea for a pop-up bowling alley. I don't fucking know. It's we don't have the details on that yet. Also, the Realm Invitational Weekend is December 1st and 3rd in Columbus, Ohio. So the 20K starts on Friday. I'm actually in a pretty good seat to be qualified for that, which is fucking nuts to me. But I've had one good event and entered the rest of them, I guess. And then you have a 5K Brawl on Saturday for people that scrub out, and also people coming from other places to play. And then the 2K Blitz on Sunday that also carry qualifications for the 2024 Realm Circuit, which will have a $50,000 invitational at the end of the year. With again, just absolute mind-boggling absurdity. So I would advise heavily to do everything you can to qualify for both of these events, because these are both things that you're going to want to be a part of. Just trust me, I would never lead you astray. You ready for some listener questions? Again, the Patreon has been blessing us with some of this stuff. It's been great.
Yeah, we've actually got some good listener questions this week, not ones from like charcuterie.
Yeah, that fucking guy. But first one's from Greg. I would love to know if y'all think one of the serialized cards from Dusk Till Dawn will be pulled before the One Ring. And so what they're referencing there is Magic is doing a 1-of-1 One Ring card that's inserted in collector's booster boxes. Whereas the serialized cards from Dusk Till Dawn, there will be 20 of them total. And I think I know where he's going with this question, but I'm going to let you tackle it first.
Well, my gut tells me that one of the serialized Flesh and Blood cards will likely be open first, just because, like, statistically it's on their side from a volume standpoint. So, like, technically the Magic set releases sooner, right?
Yes.
If you're looking for like your exact dates for comparison, I think the MTG set is in a couple weeks. It's like June 23rd or something like that, I want to say.
Lines. Yeah.
And then obviously Dusk Till Dawn is that second week in July. It's like the 14th, if I'm looking at this calendar correctly, because it's always on a Friday. Yeah, 14th. So the only, in my opinion, like the only way that the One Ring beats it is if it's opened before Dusk Till Dawn launches, because I think we're going to get one of the serialized cards in the first month of Dusk Till Dawn, because there's 20 of them. So I just expect one of those to be found faster from a sheer like numbers and volume standpoint. I do think, however, that there's going to be a lot of people just absolutely shredding Magic product to try to find it. So like that's the X factor. But there is, just like with any Magic product, a lot of people that will probably buy and sit on sealed product, because that's going to be this is going to be such an interesting thing, right? This is the deal or no deal of trading cards. The more cases you open without the big winner, the more valuable your case becomes, just like in Deal or No Deal. So the people who buy and sit on the Lord of the Rings set, their sealed product goes way up in value the longer that One Ring remains out there. So as much as there's going to be people just tearing through that set, there will be people who just sit on a good chunk. So yeah, right now, if I was a betting person, I think that the odds are probably in favor of Dusk Till Dawn hitting one of those 20 first.
I think you're right. However, the one caveat I'm going to put in there is I would not put it past Wizards to send the seeded case or box to somebody that would be a content creator with a lot of views to open on stream. That does sound. Are you
saying that they would do something nefarious? Hasbro?
Like send the Pinkertons to somebody's fucking door?
Yeah,
yes.
That doesn't sound like them.
Yeah, it sounds kind of exactly like them. Just gonna throw that out there. That's right in their wheelhouse. So it wouldn't be a shock if, like, Post Malone opened it on stream or whatever, or another like big name that is into Magic.
I was gonna say I wouldn't put it past them, but I also feel like that would just piss even more people off.
Oh, absolutely.
Too. Like specifically if like Post Malone or just somehow, some way, like Stephen Colbert opens it or whatever, right? Like people
Joseph
be like, all right, come on, like they'd be like, we know this was planted at that point. You know what I mean? Like.
And if you're going to plant it with like the 3 floating kids. They do great jobs. Moving on. This one's from Iron Mag 44. When are we going to be getting the little outro messages like Jordan used to do? I'm just going to handle this one right now. I'm not Jordan. We are not the same person. Jordan has this infectious empathy that's I have tried to emulate a few times, and I feel like I failed. Now, if anybody, I should say, does not feel that way, then I will go back to doing, I did a few of these little outros after Jordan left, But if you feel like the ones that I was doing had at least 30% of the effect of Jordan's outros, I will begin recording them again and installing them at some intervals. I don't know that I would want to do it every week, but I can do it at least some of the time. But please please tell me if that actually matters, because I don't know. Like, I feel like that we are very clear and upfront with how much we actually care, love, and adore our listeners. The Fappers really are the best of the podcast audiences. And a lot of it is because it's an entirely organically grown audience, right? Like, you guys are all listening because you fucking want to, not because you're a bot in trying to drive up our numbers or anything like that. You're also all human beings. Well, most, like Mara listens, but you're all human, Dagon, but you're all human beings. And that's, it's great. I love the community we have. We bring each other up. We talk shit. We let people know that there are Monster Energy pickles, which I'm still, I don't know about that one. I'm still a little confused. But if you want me to start doing them again, I can. Like, that's totally fine. Again, it's going to be hit and miss. It's not going to be every episode, but I will do my best. Moving on through the question. Also, fabled for the new set. Are we thinking a location, maybe a battlefield that gives either dark or light a benefit depending on the hero? I kind of like that. Charmer, again, we're going to give you first crack at this since I already had to talk about doing little forehead kisses. So please.
Well, as a real person
Oh my
and
God,
not a robot.
You are firmly in the cut chair, sir.
I just have to say that I think we're going to get a shadow location. We got a light location in Monarch. I think that instead of it being like a battlefield or whatever, I do think that could be cool. In many ways, I almost feel like that's kind of like what Corsham was meant to be, not necessarily a battlefield, but something that played into all of the different elements. But I just feel like we got a library. Now it's time to get something spooky. Like, we're going to get the haunted house of, Wraith, basically. Like, I don't know what the location would be that they would choose. I do think it'd be cool if we just got, like, lore wise, something happened to the library and maybe we just outright get like a dark Solana themed location. But I just have this feeling we're going to get a shadow location, like specifically shadow. And I think that it's going to be something that all of the shadow heroes, maybe even including Leviah, have a shot at using.
Yeah, I think shadow location makes a ton of sense. That being said, so does Art of War. It's a set about banishing things. It's a set about that, heroes that have cared about yellows. Art of War fits the mold, and it's a staple from the first year of Flesh and Blood. So, I think that does make some sense too. I would prefer a location at this point because I think it is important to, lore-wise, to have kind of that both a light location and a shadow location. Like a corrupted Solana would be so sick. Like a corrupted library would be so great. That would then again, yes, my God, if it could play into that, like if you could banish the corrupted library with Vincent and then bring it back from the banish zone to have the same effect, but like for blues or reds, it would have to be blues. But that'd be so cool. Like, I would love that, but that's probably too much. Just saying.
Yeah.
What else can we do with that? I mean, I guess there's a lot of ways to go with that with a shadow location, right?
I mean, there's a lot of, so that's the interesting bit, right? There's a lot of different ways you could go, because it could deal with banishing, it could deal with blood debt, or it could also do weird things like potentially let you play cards that don't have blood debt from your banished zone, but like at a cost of health or something. Like I've thought about like that could be an interesting bit too, where all right, you've got these cards that are banished, and normally, you know, it sucks when you just like lose the cool card. You know, like when you're playing Chain, right? And you lose your Art of Wars or whatever, and you're like, well, that's just gone. You know, I missed and whiffed and hit CNC or whatever. It'd be cool if they gave you a single like legendary location in your deck that could let you get some of those back, but at a, you know, pretty significant cost, like health. And I think that would play into the theme. So
Yeah, that makes sense. I do believe that if you had that location, you would need to be able to play it from your banished zone, though. Like, I feel like the
sure.
location has to have blood debt. But that is interesting, though. I kind of like it, but we'll see what they do. I think they have a lot of room here, and people are going to be ripping this set more than I think more than they did Dynasty. Maybe not as much as Everfest, because Everfest became the Starvo set, and that caused a lot of ripping of Everfest to make sure you had a Starvo. But amongst other things, like there were other, I mean, Everfest is actually chock full of cards that matter now. But yeah, I feel like this set is going to be opened a ton because people are going to be chasing the serialized cards. Please don't do that, people. Just don't. Like, pretend they don't exist until they do. Just don't. But I think a lot of people are going to be opening them to get their new heroes, to get the specializations, you know, for their favorite heroes. For I'm going to guess that the legendaries are all sort of in that same vein where they're catering to underserved heroes. Maybe you finally get your guardian feat type of thing.
They don't exist. I'm going to call this right now. I'll get a serialized hero before I get guardian boots.
Okay. I like it.
Guardians are barefoot, man.
The barefoot Contessas of Flesh and Blood are guardians. Well, speaking of guardians, Tiny 10 Hands asked, Paladin and Cleric type characters have always been my favorite fantasy archetype, and while Bolton fills this role somewhat, I am eagerly anticipating a light guardian to truly fill the big holy man with hammer slot. Okay. What do you think a light guardian design could look like? You're the guardian guy. Like, I'm giving you these questions to start because you are the guardian guy in this case, and I thought that you would have a couple of better answers. You know, I'm kind of disappointed in you, but I think you'll crush this one, so go for it.
Crush, indeed. Very,
oh, for fuck's sake, God
much so.
Damn it!
The light guardian is going to have attacks that say crush effect, but also when the crush triggers, you put it into your soul, and then your activated ability is going to be you can banish, you know, up to 2 cards from your soul and reduce the next damage by the number of cards you've banished. So it'll give you a defensive ability that you can play, and it'll be similar to like a Crown of Seeds, but not as abusable because it requires you to charge it up front, but you can go up to 2, kind of like the Earth React, but also still requires you to be offensive. And they're going to tie it, if it's not crush effect, it would be an on-hit effect, because they also, I think, have kind of realized that Guardian still needs to have some sort of incentive to actually attack. I think that's what the original crush effect was intended to be. And then when Oldhim came out, people are like, well, why would I do that when I can just be turbo defensive most of the time and then just take my opportunistic swings? So I think that the next time we get a Guardian, and especially if we got something like a light Guardian, because in my mind, that's almost like a Crusader type thing where you're going to, you know, beat them into submission. If it's not a crush effect, it'll for sure be an on-hit effect, kind of in that vein where it's on hit, do the thing, put it into your soul, and then, like I said, it'll be some sort of damage mitigation. You'll remove a number of cards from your soul to trigger it, and that's that. I think that's the easiest way to really hit the hallmarks of both the light theme as well as the Guardian theme.
I really hate that I led you straight into that.
Yeah.
But I think that like I understand where you're going with this. I think I'd rather see that on a weapon. So like a shield that you charge specifically, and then you remove cards from the shield, that are charged into the shield to increase the block value of the shield. I think that kind of plays more into a light guardian, and then the other ability would be the guardian would have the ability to charge the shield. So you'd never actually want to play it two-handed for the most part. It would always be hammer shield, but you would still be able to play somewhat offensive with that, because if your shield is blocking pseudo for free, then okay, like you can just kind of keep doing that thing.
Well, so the only reason
Um,
that I don't like tying it to a shield is because then in many ways, like your entire hero is now running through that piece of equipment, and that starts to do other things. Like then you have to make it a token equipment for limited reasons, because otherwise your hero is going to feel really bad without that shield. Whereas, when you start thinking about like draft and things like that, just having it directly tied to the hero means that you can still live that like kind of iconic crossover dream just by selecting that when you
okay.
start drafting, right? I see where you're going, and I like the theme of the thing that's doing the blocking being a physical item that normally does the blocking. But from like the game design standpoint, I think that you want the core hallmarks of what your hero is supposed to do, like on the hero text, and then you can have things that supplement it or modify it. But I think that in this case, you want it just straight up on the hero.
Yeah, I could see that. Like,
Yeah.
that makes some sense. I was just trying to get it a little bit away from the hero, just because that becomes very oppressive if you don't have a way. So like things like drill shot right now would start limiting the effect of that shield, but the shield is still not useless. But if you don't have the option,
Well,
and they can just
you have plenty of options though. Like it's just temporary, but it's still like you can set them up, right? So it's going to make cards like Humble and Crush Confidence and all of those back to like being relevant again. I think that there are existing enough cards that you could potentially shut that down if you needed to. And then again, as always, you can print more. There is also Vambrace, right? Like Vambrace existing also opened up a lot of new lines because the damage prevention thing is no longer nearly as oppressive as it used to be. Same thing with Vincent, right? Like Vincent already existing gives you some playability into it. So
I mean, you're trading 1-for-1 on life, but
sure, but that favors the Runeblade probably.
most of the time, yeah. Like, I mean, that's historically, yes. Let's go that route.
Yeah.
Last listener question. It's amazing how much quicker this show moves if we can't see each other. Like right now, Charmer's internet is dog shit.
Yeah.
And so we have decided to not use video, so I can't see him, so he can't make me laugh that way.
Yeah, I am the reason that there's no video this week. I have had a lot of disconnects. I lost my Diablo 4 hardcore character to internet
That's
problems.
so heartbreaking.
For those of you who follow my other projects, Flake and I are doing a podcast now, and we got, I don't know, like 10 or 15 minutes into our first recording of it, and we had to start over again because I just straight up disconnected for like 10 minutes. So yeah, I'm having issues. I'm sorry.
Nope, these things happen. I'm not mad. It's just one of those.
I'm not mad. I'm just disappointed. Okay, thanks, Dad.
I mean, yeah, that's kind of true. just gonna go out. I'm just gonna get out there and say it. Yeah, that's kind of how that works.
Yeah.
But last listener question is from Vintox. A lot of people are talking about Levia being the next hero to get the buff treatment and have floated ideas for balancing them, such as giving Brute on-hit discard effects. If you were buffing the Brute class to be relevant in the meta again, how would you do it, and what would be your ways of keeping them balanced while buffing them? So first things first, no fucking Earth Brutes. and no on-hit discard effects. Both of these are terrifying.
You already have an on-hit discard effect. It's called
called death.
You should be running Pummel.
There's that too. So now let's talk about brutes. What are brutes missing? So brute to me is the most dangerous class to fuck with. And the reason for that is everything they do from a damage perspective is effectively above rate at all points in time. 3 for 9s.
Yeah.
The card Blood Rush Bellows. Like, there are so many things that and then Intimidate itself makes the cards hit. So if you start adding on hits to brute, even if they're somewhat benign on hits, like take a counter off, remove a charge counter from a piece of equipment. So the only thing it really does anything to is Tunic. That's probably still too much. Like, it's, as a brute player, I've talked to a lot of them, and they're always just their request is always super simple. And it's two things. It's either an on hit or a blue pitch 6. Now, when I say a blue pitch 6, I mean the card has no other text. You could make the card cost 21 resources. You could give it a negative block value. It doesn't fucking matter. It just needs to be a blue that has 6 power. That's it. Now, if you put that, like, if you think about that from a lens of, okay, what can we do to buff brute? And the thing that they want most to send their hero into a place where the hero is automatically better is simply a card that is blue with 6 power that you can't play. That's absurd. That's teetering on the edge already, because the hit on hit effect of brute has always just been death.
Yeah. The problem is that the brute class, what it craves the most right now is consistency.
Right.
And so anything that you're doing that makes them even slightly more consistent starts to get incredibly dangerous.
Right. That's 100% true. And
so I do have some thoughts on ways that you could at least make brute more attractive. Let me just start by saying, I think that the way that you address brute right now, as of today, without even printing new cards, is to just have courage, have testicular fortitude, because I think that a lot of people are just shied away because they don't like the randomness, and
risk it for the biscuit, baby.
There's a reason that the randomness exists. It's there to offset how powerful the hero is. So just try it. I think you'll be surprised. Now, like, with that PSA out of the way, one of the things that I think is underutilized currently and doesn't have like a true home yet, and I don't think would necessarily be too over the moon, is to maybe not like on hit effects, but since they already have Intimidate and that's like their way of getting unblockable damage through, I think that you could also explore or play with the overpower keyword, because
sure, yep.
I think that also thematically fits, a big hulking brute overpowering you. Dominate is kind of the guardian hallmark, and I know that overpower, has showed up on some warrior cards, and that makes sense as well. But to me, the warrior overpower is more like an interesting flourish of sword play of sorts. It's not the same. I think that if you printed some brute cards that also had overpower on it, like thematically, I'm not even going to blink. I'd be like, okay, like that's cool.
Sure.
Just again, to like give them something else in the arsenal. But again, I think you have to be very careful with how you approach it, because like I said, and you said as well, the thing they crave the most is consistency. And the moment that they get just even a little bit too consistent, they're going to be a problem. And you're going to all be like, okay, why did we let this happen? Who asked for this?
So I ran this by a friend of mine because, again, we were having this discussion and Levia was the topic. And it's like, okay, so the card is a 5 resource, 8 damage, 0 block card. I think it was 4 resources. It was 4 resources. 8 damage, 0 block, yellow. Right?
Mm-hmm.
That whenever it would change, go to your discard pile, banish it instead. Right?
Mm-hmm.
And then had Blood Debt 4. So 4 instances of Blood Debt on it. And also had, you can play this card from your banish zone for 7. So like had an alternate cost to play from the banish zone of 7. And then I said, would you play this card? And he's like, in a heartbeat. I'm like, oh, God damn it. Like, I did everything to that card to make it unappealing. And they're just like, yeah, fucking snap in. Okay. At that point, I was like, there's no good way to do this. Like, you kind of have to keep printing things so you're not scared of Brute, and then you can give Brute a morsel. I think the best ways to make Brute better are all just giving them a little bit better equipment here and there, like a Brute chest, like a really good Brute chest that isn't free resources.
This is also going to sound weird. I know we just talked about the Light Guardian, but I'd been thinking about this for a while. I actually think that the way that you can make Brute slightly more relevant is when you print a Shadow Guardian. Because if you give a potential counterplay, right? Meaning cards that you can play defensively from your banished zone. And I think that would fall under like a Shadow Guardian feel. Then you can give Brute a little bit more juice because then you have potential counterplay against Intimidate.
Oh, sure. That makes sense.
Because like that's the big thing. And I think the thing that's missing is like with Dominate and then, you know, even with Overpower that I mentioned, et cetera, there's still potential counterplay, right? Like there's still ways around it. But when 3 cards of your hand are straight up gone for the turn, there is no like, and again, like you might have the 1 card in your arsenal or whatever, but there is like no tricks that you're really pulling at that point. So I really feel like once we get, you know, defense reactions, you know, maybe tied to Blood Debt or whatever that are meant for a Shadow Guardian that just say like you can play this from the banish zone, but then that also means you could play them if they were intimidated, then you can rein in some of that explosiveness.
Yeah, I mean, that makes sense too. It's just, I think that Brute's problem is, and probably always will be, that you're 1 step away from a mistake.
Yeah.
You can
do no all or nothing, man. Like,
right. But you can do a lot of things with like Warrior, right? And it's not going to be like it would take multiple cards to make Bolton or Doranthea super oppressive. They made an insanely good ninja, and it was slightly overtuned. They made 1 change, and the deck is no longer the preeminent aggressive deck, right? You have like Rangers. It took printing and printing and printing of cards to get them to a critical mass where they are a competitive deck, and they probably printed 1 too many. Like, let's be completely honest, they probably did 1 too many, and that's okay. That's totally fine. They're not winning everything. I'm very worried when Oldham leaves, but they're, as of right now, you know, they're fine. Like they're very good. They're probably the best thing you can be doing outside of Oldham, but they do have an Oldham problem, and that's relevant. Okay, like that matters. The problem with Brute though is that the on hit for Brute is dying. It's just death. So balancing around those seems really awkward and terrible. Just my 2 cents, I guess. But thank you for the question. I appreciate it. Darick, I think it's that time.
Think it is in fact that time.
I think it is that time. And by that time, it's the time for us to close up shop here on Flesh and Pod. I want to thank you all for listening. It's always a joy and a delight to be a part of your day. If you or so inclined, please, if you found our show, rate and review. 5 stars is always what we're gunning for. If we are not a 5-star show in your opinion, I don't know. There, whatever I can change, you can tell me, but I will. I can't make any promises. You can find the show anywhere right now. It's on YouTube. It's on all the podcast platforms, except for some fucking reason, not on like Stitcher, I believe it is, which is just crazy to me because I know it used to be.
They did a thing where they revamped a bunch of user accounts. I found this out recently because I had an account with them because of other podcasts I've done for years, and I don't anymore. Like straight up, my thing is gone. I think they did some sort of internal migration or something, but you might just have to make an account and submit it. I only found this out this week, so
damn. Okay, well, I'll have to do that then. So if you want to contact the show, you can reach us on Twitter at FleshPod. You can also find us in our Discord. That link is in the show notes. We are very responsive there. You can also send us an email at fleshandpod@gmail.com. We're going to go ahead and do some Patreon shout-outs too, because I do have it pulled up, which again, me not missing this is, I got to stop calling it out, because it's just more often than not, I'm crushing this. I don't know.
Yeah.
Like I got good at something, and that good thing is remembering to thank the people that pay me. But thank you to our associate producers, Andy, Kenny, and May, and our executive producers and up, C-Dubs, Josh L, Lance Goodthrust, Matt 2Ts, Popo Mike, Rich, Alex, Ed, Philip, Taylor, and Trevor. If you would like to support the show, you can go to patreon.com/fleshandpod. The link is in the show notes. There are, I don't know, some fucking number of tiers, but pick one that you enjoy, and then do the thing, do the needful, as it were. If you have an idea for a tier, also let me know. I am more than happy to revamp the Patreon. I have no attachment to it whatsoever. Much like Jordan with Elaine, I have no familial attachment. But Darick, where can I find you?
In our Discord, hanging out, having a good time, but also on Twitch and on YouTube, I'm just Charmer. That's Charm3R. And then on Twitter, which is the social media that I use the most frequently, I am that Charmer, because they won't give me the old dead account. And basically everywhere else, I'm also that Charmer if I'm not just straight up Charmer.
Well, that's pretty easy then. If you want to find me personally, at Logan Peterson on Twitter, my username is just my name everywhere. So if you're looking for me, you can just my name. It was confirmed by our Discord that I am not on Feet Finder.
Good to know.
So that's good to know. Yep. But not. So I don't know if I'm disappointed, but I think I'm more relieved, because I don't know, because monetizing my feet does sound like a great plan. At any rate, my DMs are open on Twitter, so please do not abuse that, as I am still getting sugar daddy messages. I thought that they were over, but they are not. And also, word to the wise, never, ever, ever, ever use that phrase on Twitter, apparently. My Discord DMs are open to anybody I share a server with, so feel free to reach out and say hello. I don't think I got anything else. Oh, please. Oh, yeah. This will be in the show notes too, but please make sure you are reading and subscribing to the Possum Papers, written by Jordan Kennedy, every week. It is some of the best content out there, and it's great because it feels like it feels like early 2000s shit, because it's just text. So that to me makes me feel young again, because I was pseudo young in the early 2000s. But It's also just a great read. Jordan's a super talented writer, so please do go in there and have a gander and subscribe. It's a wonderful newsletter. It's done weekly. I can't recommend it enough. But and also I believe that the Rainbow Pitch League has started. I don't know that they're streaming games yet, but as soon as that content goes up, I'll make sure to find it and link it. But that will be a lot of fun to watch as soon as they start getting games up on stream. I think that will be super interesting and a blast. So be on the lookout for that too. Beyond that, I ain't got anything else. So again, thank you all for your time. Thank you for listening. We love you all, and we will talk to y'all next week. Bye.
Bye.